What happens when a prince's pursuit of justice turns into a poison that rots a kingdom from within? Absalom did not start as a villain. He did not wake up one morning and decide to overthrow his father's throne for personal ambition. He started as a grieving brother and standing in the wreckage of something unspeakable, watching the man who was supposed to protect his family do absolutely nothing. And what we are going to trace today is that chilling transition. The movement from a legitimate wound to a calculated, cold-blooded insurrection, from justice delayed to justice weaponized, from a broken heart to a stolen crown. Because Absalom's story is not just a cautionary tale about rebellion. It is a precise psychological map of what bitterness builds when grief has nowhere honest to go. And if you have ever watched someone in authority fail to protect someone who needed it, if you have ever decided that since no one else would act, you would, then this story is closer to your life than you may want to admit. 2 Samuel chapter 13. Amnon, David's firstborn son, violates his half-sister Tamar. The crime is documented without ambiguity. Tamar resists, Tamar pleads, and Amnon commits the act anyway. Then verse 15 records something that deepens the wound considerably. Then Amnon hated her with intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her, and he had her thrown out. Tamar goes to live in desolation in her brother Absalom's house. Now watch what David does in verse 21. When King David heard all this, he was furious. Furious, and then nothing. He does not remove Amnon, does not hold a hearing, does not discipline, exile, or confront his firstborn son in any meaningful way. The text tells us later that David loved Amnon because he was his firstborn. His love for the son who committed the crime paralyzed his duty to the daughter who suffered it. This is the first domino. And it is not Absalom's fault that it falls. Absalom watches his sister live in desolation. He watches his father's fury produce zero consequence. He watches the institutional and familial silence that follows a public injustice, the way the household reorganizes around the crime rather than addressing it. And he does what people do when the system that should protect them fails completely. He internalizes. Verse 22. Absalom never said a word to Amnon, either good or bad. He hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar. 2 years of silence. Not peace. Silence. There is a critical difference. Peace is the resolution of conflict. Silence is the compression of it, a pressure that builds with no release valve, that hardens what should have remained pliable, that transforms grief into architecture. Absalom's hardening begins here, not with a choice to become bitter, with an environment that gave bitterness the only available room. Here's the question I want to leave in the room before we move forward. And I want you to think about this honestly. Has there ever been a moment in your life where someone in authority saw the injustice, felt the fury, and then did nothing? Drop your answer in the comments. Not every detail, just yes or no. Because understanding how that silence lands in the body is essential to understanding everything Absalom does next. 2 years pass. 2 years of watching Amnon live freely, eat at the same table, exist in the same kingdom, untouched, unaccountable, unremarkable. And then Absalom moves. He does not move rashly. This is important. 2 Samuel 13:23-29 records a plan that required invitation, logistics, and nerve. Absalom hosts a sheep shearing celebration and invites all the king's sons. He instructs his servants in advance. When Amnon is drunk with wine, strike him down. Do not be afraid. I have given the order. This is not a crime of passion. This is a premeditated execution. Absalom has spent 2 years converting emotional pain into operational strategy. Every detail is managed. The occasion, the timing, the method, the command structure. He has moved from victim's brother to cold architect. And here is where the moral complexity of this story refuses to stay comfortable. Because Amnon was guilty. The crime was real. The silence of the king was real. The desolation of Tamar was real. When Absalom kills Amnon, there's a version of that moment that feels like justice, the only justice that was ever going to come. And that feeling is exactly what makes the next stage of Absalom's descent so dangerous. Because the moment you take justice into your own hands and it feels righteous, you have established a precedent inside yourself. You have taught your conscience that the alternative authority, or your authority, is legitimate when the official one fails. And a conscience that has learned that lesson does not stop at Amnon. Absalom flees to Geshur, stays 3 years. David mourns for Absalom every day, another form of furious inaction. The man who could not act against Amnon cannot act to restore Absalom. David's passivity, the original wound, keeps producing consequences. Absalom returns to Jerusalem after 5 years away. But he is not the same man who left. He has a plan, and the plan is patient, surgical, and brilliant in the most troubling way. 2 Samuel 15, 2-6. He rises early every morning and stands at the city gate. When anyone comes with a dispute to bring before the king, Absalom intercepts them. He listens, he validates. He says, "Your claims are valid and proper, but there is no representative of the king to hear you." Then verse 4. "If only I were appointed judge in the land, I would see that everyone who has a complaint gets justice." Read that carefully. Every word is calculated. He positions himself as the solution to the exact failure that radicalized him, David's refusal to provide justice. He manufactures empathy publicly, in the space where the king should be visible but isn't. When people try to bow to him, he lifts them up, embraces them, treats them as equals. Verse 6. Absalom behaved this way toward all the Israelites who came to the king asking for justice, and so he stole the hearts of the people. Stole. The text uses the word deliberately. This is not leadership earned, it is leadership extracted through performance. This is the architecture of a usurper. Not someone who takes power by force first, but someone who manufactures consent through the deliberate mimicry of the qualities his target lacks. Absalom had watched David's blind spots for years. He knew exactly what the people needed that David was not providing. And he built his campaign on the negative space of his father's failures. Here's what I want you to subscribe and stay for, because this next section is where the story stops being about Absalom and starts being about every leader who builds their platform on someone else's failure rather than their own calling. Subscribe if you have not yet. What we are about to unpack is the part of this story nobody talks about. Absalom declares himself king in Hebron. The conspiracy spreads. David flees Jerusalem for a brief, extraordinary moment. Absalom has it. The throne, the city, the crown he spent years engineering toward, and immediately it begins to collapse. 2 Samuel 16 and 17 record the critical strategic errors that follow. Hushai the Archite, David's advisor pretending to serve Absalom, offers counsel that sounds wise but is designed to delay. And Absalom accepts it over Ahithophel's genuinely sound military advice, the advice that would have ended the conflict quickly and decisively. Ahithophel, knowing his counsel has been rejected, goes home and hangs himself. The kingdom's most capable mind removes itself from the picture rather than watch the inevitable unfold. Why does Absalom make the wrong call? Because he is not operating from wisdom. He is operating from wounds. A leader driven by the need for public validation, for the visible, theatrical triumph over the father who failed him, will always choose the plan that looks impressive over the plan that works. Absalom did not want to win efficiently. He wanted to win in a way that felt like justice. He wanted his father to see. He wanted the people to see. He wanted the throne taken loudly, publicly, undeniably. And that desire for spectacle is what gave Hushai the opening to destroy him. His physical appearance is worth noting here because the text makes a point of it. 2 Samuel 14, 25-26. In all Israel, there was not a man so highly praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. From the top of his head to the sole of his foot, there was no blemish in him. In his hair, he cut it once a year and it weighed 200 shekels. The text records the weight of his hair. This is not incidental detail. This is the writer showing you everything you need to know about the gap between surface and substance. The most beautiful man in Israel. 200 shekels of hair, and a soul rotting from the inside out with unprocessed grief and unresolved bitterness that no crown was ever going to reach. The very hair that made him famous becomes his undoing. 2 Samuel 18:9. Absalom's head got caught in the tree, he was left hanging. The most celebrated physical feature of the most celebrated man in Israel, the thing he was most praised for, is what holds him suspended between heaven and earth while Joab drives 3 javelins through his heart. The thing you are most proud of can become the thing that holds you helpless. David's response when the news arrives is one of the most raw moments in all of Scripture. 2 Samuel 18:33, the king was shaken. He went up to the room over the gateway and wept. As he went, he said, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you." The man who could not act when Tamar needed him, who could not confront Amnon, who could not restore Absalom from exile, who could not provide the justice that would have stopped the long fuse from burning. He is weeping now, too late, in full, for the son whose bitterness he watered with his own silence for years. This is the legacy of a fractured house. Not a single dramatic failure, but the cumulative weight of every small abdication of responsibility, every moment where action was available and inaction was chosen, every grief that was left to harden because the person in authority found it easier to feel furious than to be just. And the cycle does not end with Absalom. David's house continues to fracture. The unresolved trauma moves downstream. The silence that failed Tamar echoed forward into everything that followed. Now here's the direct challenge this story leaves with every one of us. 3 things. First, unprocessed grief does not stay still. It migrates. It moves from the private interior into the public exterior, from the wound into the weapon. The question is not whether your grief will express itself. The question is whether you will give it a direction before it chooses one for itself. Second, bitterness is the most patient strategist in your life. It will wait 2 years. It will build a campaign. It will find your father's blind spot and weaponize it. It will manufacture the exact appearance of the qualities it lacks. And it will do all of this while convincing you that you are simply pursuing justice. Third, a crown won through bitterness cannot provide what justice was meant to restore. Absalom got the throne. He still did not have peace, because the wound was never really about the throne. It was about Tamar sitting in desolation. It was about a father's fury that produced nothing. No amount of political victory was going to reach that, and no amount of external achievement, no promotion, no vindication, no public recognition, will reach the wound in you that bitterness has been promising to heal. The peace that justice was meant to restore is not found at the end of a campaign. It is found when you stop letting the person who failed you determine the next chapter of your story. Absalom never found that. The hair caught in the tree, Joab's 3 javelins, the pit, and a father weeping too late over a son he failed too long ago to save. The fracture did not begin with the rebellion. It began with the silence. Do not let yours begin the same way. If this study uncovered something you have been carrying quietly, name it in the comments. You do not need to explain the whole story, just name it, and share this with someone who is currently in their 2-year silence. Someone sitting with a wound the authorities in their life refuse to address. They need to know what that silence builds if it is not interrupted. Subscribe so you never miss a study like this. We will see you in the next one.